Hello viewers, today I want to talk about a book, Crime and Punishment, which I started reading in the which I started reading this year, and I've been I've not finished it because I read it aloud and my pace is slow, but I'm making good progress. I want to focus on the character or the protagonist, Raskolnikov, and the question he asked himself, or the central question he posed himself, which triggered a cascade of events in the book, which was whether he was an ordinary man or an extraordinary man. So, according to so just a brief history about Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov was a former law student who lives in a dirty, nasty one-room apartment, and who lived in a dirty, nasty one-room apartment. He was very poor, and his family, the mother and the sister, once wrote a letter to him about his sister getting married to a man, but he was able to deduce the true content of the letter, which was that his sister was about to delve into a marriage, or get into a marriage with him, or prostitute herself in the form of a marriage to a rich man, in order to alleviate the suffering of the family. And he did not want to subject his family to such misery, or he did not want the sister to subject herself to such misery for him. So he, as a consequence, went against that marriage and maintained that it wasn't going to hold, and it never did. Okay, so he was also a man who was extremely conscious of himself and his environment, and who was always in deep thoughts. Okay, and he was always consistently asking himself this question of whether he was an ordinary man or an extraordinary man, and he truly wanted to find out where he belonged. So, according to him, an ordinary man is a man who lives within the confines of the societal norms and regulations and rules and societal sphere. He or she does not go beyond the social order. They are basically conservatives. They wished to maintain the social norms, and they run the society. They maintain the machinery of the society. They grow. They get older. They get married. They work. They find work, and then they give birth, and then they die. Right? They don't typically have visions. Okay. But then, on the other hand, you have the extraordinary men, and these are men who are wired differently. They have visionaries beyond their time, and they seek to actualize this purpose. And obviously, when they are on this objective to actualize their visions, the society, the ordinary man, the government would tackle them and will try to bring them down. They are mostly subjected to persecution. They are mostly subjected to torture, to death, because of their vision. And at times they succeed, other times they don't. But when they do succeed, over time, the people would realize that these guys were visionaries. Okay, and consequently, some of their visions will be inculcated into the laws now, or some of their visions will now become laws, and these laws will be strictly followed by the ordinary men. Okay, so the Raskolnikov wanted to know whether he was an ordinary man or an extraordinary man. And these extraordinary men are very few relative to the ordinary men. So, and the question, a good question, a follow-up question he asked himself was that these extraordinary men, are willing to go above and beyond to actualize their goal. And then he posed a good question, that if, for example, you were subjected, assuming you were subjected, you were, he used an example, I suppose, someone like Napoleon, but someone like Napoleon, when he was wreaking havoc across Europe, he was never considered a hero. Okay, he was never considered a hero. But afterwards, over time, the French basically made him a hero, and now he is revered by both his both his nation, his home nation, France, and then the other nations he fought against, Russia, United Kingdom, and a series of other countries that united to fight against him. He's now revered. He's now revered and considered a legend, an icon, a great man. Okay, but when he was wreaking havoc across Europe, nobody considered him a great man. And another point, another example was Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton. Okay, they have these beautiful postulations about gravity, and now the question is posed to you: if seeing the advancement in technology which came to be as a consequence of the discoveries made by Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, if a billion persons, if a billion people were to die in order for them to actualize those theories and to make those discoveries, would that be justifiable? Okay. You really need to think about this, because if those discoveries were not made, we would not know how the sun generates its energy. We would not know about the workings of the gravity or the workings of the universe. We would not know about black holes. We would not know a lot about our universe. Okay, so it's a beautiful question. If a billion people were to be sacrificed in order for us to actualize such discoveries and actualize such visions, would that be justifiable? Would that be good? So to his mind, to Raskolnikov's mind, such sacrifice is good. Okay, because you weigh it against the benefits of such discoveries. Okay, so, and the fact that he concurred with that sacrifice being good was what prompted him to commit a murder. Okay, because in his locale there was this woman, a pawnbroker, who was malicious and wicked, and he pawns items at an expensive rate, and people would complain. However, nobody could do anything about it. And Raskolnikov was pissed off. Raskolnikov patronized the woman, and the question he asked himself was, if this woman were to die, imagine the items she had, how good those items and money would serve the good people of Russia or the good people of Petersburg. So, and this idea was also reinforced when he went to a bar, I suppose, and he overheard two people talking about the woman, and they also said the same. They also said shared the same idea as Raskolnikov, that if this woman were to die, a lot of people would benefit from her death. Okay, so now the question, this scenario that presented itself now before Raskolnikov, if he were able to kill this woman for the greater good, that means he is an extraordinary man. Okay, so he set out to commit this murder. He committed this murder. However, the outcome was not exactly as anticipated, because he did not really take into consideration his conscience, and his conscience came to bear at full force on him, and he realized that the pre-murder Raskolnikov was completely different from the post-murder Raskolnikov, and he psychologically broke down and had to the mental breakdown manifested as physical ailments, and he had to be taken care of by a doctor. okay, and by a medical doctor who kept on prescribing, making a diagnosis after diagnosis, giving him treatment, which did little to alleviate his suffering, because his suffering was mental. And at a point he contemplated, confessing. He truly wanted to confess, but he was born in between two fires, okay, whether he should confess or not, or whether he should allow his conscience to keep bearing down on him. And it continued for a long while, and it kept tearing him apart, up until a particular detective came, because he would go to the police station and he would be subjected to interrogations, and nobody was able to pin the murder on him, okay. However, when a particular detective came, Porphyry came into the picture, a policeman, he had already read the article written by Raskolnikov, and that was my best part of the book. I believe Porphyry came into the picture in part 3, act 5, I suppose. That was when he came into the picture, and he did not use the standard police manner of interrogating suspects. Okay, he was the archetypal psychological interrogator. Okay, he was extremely calm, and he subjected Raskolnikov to hell. And he asked him a simple question, whether he was, at the end of the interrogation, because Raskolnikov, I said, was a conscious man. At the end of the interrogation, he asked him a question, whether he was an ordinary, that he first of all informed him that he had already read his article about ordinary and extraordinary man. They had a heated conversation about that, and then he posed the question, do you yourself believe you belong to the extraordinary group? Okay, and Raskolnikov, who to a degree was truthful in spite of the lies he had told, could not resist answering that question, and he told them that yes, he believed he was an extraordinary man. Okay, and that was also a pointer that he was capable of committing the murder. Okay. So I'm here to be done with the book, but this resonated with me because when I was younger, I had such thoughts. I picked interest in history at a young age, and I wanted to truly understand what made these great men across history great, whether they were born in that manner, or they inculcated series of habits over the course of their lifetime, or a mixture of both. Okay, and then invariably I asked myself that question: was I an ordinary man or an extraordinary man? Yeah, unfortunately, I did not dwell in that thought, but I did not dwell in that thought for long. Fortunately or unfortunately, I did not dwell in that thought for long because of the nature of the country and because of my other life struggles, which took precedence over such thoughts. Okay, so, but at the end of the day, I suppose that question still lingers in my heart, because otherwise, why would I open this YouTube channel? I was extremely sad. I was to a degree sad before opening this YouTube channel. It's not to say that my life is all butterfly or rainbows and butterflies now, but the fact that I'm opening this YouTube channel and I am now to a degree incapable of writing poems. Because I'm not that I'm incapable, but I'm finding it difficult to write poems. Okay, and that means I no longer harbor to a degree the level of sadness I held before. Because then at night, nights men reflect on their life. Women reflect on their life. Everybody reflects on their life. And I would reflect, and at the end of the day I would start penning thoughts down. And those thoughts are in spite of how ill written they were, I recited before you. Okay, so the fact that I'm not able to do that means that I am no longer sad, and that is because I am performing an act which I suppose is making me bring out my potential. Okay, at least whatever this is, I'm bringing it out. I'm bringing it before you. So yes, I answered. I that thought whether I was an ordinary man or just an extraordinary man had had been had been at the bottom of my heart. And whenever I'm performing, whenever I'm doing my best to bring out the best in me, making sure that all my potentials, all the potentials I have in me, are not going to waste, it to a degree answers that question. Okay, because I am pushing myself. Oh, fair enough, I don't have the weight of the society on me trying to stop me from performing any act, but I'm narrowing that question whether I am an extraordinary man or just an ordinary man, to being able to bring out your potentials. And the way I see it, if you as a man, you are honest with yourself and you are bringing out your potential, you are trying your best to bring out all you can, all you have within you, in spite of what the people are seeing. Because at times people will look at you and they will suppose you are the happiest man on earth and you are the most successful man on earth. But when you do look at that man in the mirror, if you look at that man in the glass and that man in the glass is not happy with himself, in spite of all your successes, you'll be miserable. You could assume, you could suppose the governor of your state, into your mind, that person might be the happiest man because of what he has attained. But if deep down he is not truly working to bring out whatever that he has within him, and that which he has within him might not be to be the governor. If he's not bringing that to bear before the society, he would be a sad man, okay, in spite of whatever success he attains. So that is how I prefer to answer that question. If you, my viewer, if anybody who is watching this video is able to really bring out whatever potential he has within him and satisfy his conscience that, hey, these are what I have within me, and I'm bringing all of them to bear. If you succeed at bringing all those to bear, you are, to my mind, an extraordinary man. Okay, but if you have those potentials, whatever they are, and you refuse to really bring them out, and you kowtow to society, and you go off on a tangent in what is not related to your vision, you will become a sad man, and you will just become, at the end of the day, an ordinary man. Okay, so yeah, that's all about this video. So make sure you explore yourself when you bring out all your potentials, and in bringing out all your potentials, whatever those potentials are, and you look at that man in the glass, and you look at that man in the glass and he looks back smiling. If you're able to do that, in my book and to my mind, you are an extraordinary man or an extraordinary woman. So I'm not done reading the book, and when I'm done reading Crime and Punishment, perhaps I would make another video about it. But yeah, that question about an ordinary and extraordinary man resonated with me, and I felt I should make this video. Okay, so bring out those potentials, amigo. Bring out those potentials, whatever they are. The more you bring them out, and the more you look inward and you bring them out, the more you set yourself apart, the more extraordinary you become. Okay, and there is nothing about that does not scream adventure. And life is beautiful when it is adventurous, when you are challenging yourself to bring to bear, or to bring to life all that you have within you. Okay, so thank you very much for staying tuned, and until next time.